Welcome everybody to another episode of BACKCHAT. Today I'm hosting, and I'm joined by the handsome and wise gaming genius Balla, and we have a special guest, Poach, now BBG Poach, formerly of Andbox, fresh off of a pretty big win against Sentinels, one that I certainly didn't expect. I can't imagine you expected either, Balla, unless that was your Reddit alt account that posted that thread that
was
somehow.
me. Yeah, that was me.
I mean,
I saw that.
that is the most mad prediction I've seen. I mean, surely that guy just posts every week that he just thinks every game is going to be an upset, praying that one of them happens so he can get some gold. I don't know. I don't know how you could have seen that coming. Did you see that coming, Poach? Did you feel confident going into that game? Did you feel like you had a read on them? What was going on there?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely felt confident. We had, prepped as much as we could. We basically tried to treat it like any other match. We knew it was a tough opponent. I think BBG has played them a couple times, or maybe only once, but I'd played them several times with Andbox, and it was always a struggle. But we were always right on the cusp, and I kind of knew going in that if we were just, played our game and what we'd practice, and basically the week we had been together as a team, that we could do it.
God, so you guys have only been together for a week with those five?
Yeah, just about. I maybe a couple days after a week, but I mean, yeah, it was like pretty much a week, and we had just grinded a lot. It kind of came in and just redesigned some things, and then we just practiced with the new comp, and I just kind of slotted into what they needed. So I hadn't really played Omen before, but that's what Foe was on,
Yeah.
and worked out. I'm enjoying the role a lot, actually, playing Omen.
So it was you who made the Reddit post, basically. You're like, oh, we're prepared. I'm curious. Like you mentioned Foe right now. I'm curious how it is like filling in for a team. I mean, the core is basically the same, right? They still have Will, Critical, and everybody, but all of a sudden their IGL is swapping. How did
Mhm.
that all work? Because I feel like that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I was approached by them a while ago asking about like if I wanted to try out in like IGL, and I was originally they were trying like other ideas for roster changes, and they wanted me to come in as a Sova IGL and then Critical actually go into like a duelist type of role, which I said I was like interested, but at that time I was talking to um other orgs and stuff, and I still wasn't decided on anything I wanted to do. But then by the time it came to try out and fill in, they kind of showed me what they had and like how they had just played in matches and how they ran scrims and stuff like that. And uh, it was it was very loose, to say the least. And I kind of tried to come in and add some structure and make more sense of like how we're gonna effectively practice together and use certain comps and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the things, so during these games, one of the questions I had while I was watching was how much credit am I supposed to give you in some of these moments? Because I was assuming that you came in and you were going to be the in-game leader for this team, and you were leading in these games, correct? Like you were making the
Yeah.
calls. Like, so during these rounds, are you making like the mid-round calls as well, or are you setting up things pre-round? Like, what's the style? What's the approach?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much calling like everything. However, I try and like my teammates do a really good job of giving me like information to possibly like use later in the round, and I trust their calling a lot of the time. So there's some times where we basically start with a call early round, and then by the time it develops into the mid round, if it's not going the way we want it, if we don't get the space we need or something like that, um and somebody mentions that we've been spotted here, or they think they have a timing and stuff like that, I kind of go with that as well sometimes. So it's kind of like a shared thing in the mid round. Like I'm the end all be all call. However, I use a lot of times my teammates information to make that decision.
Yeah, gotcha. This was a nasty play Kurt has up right now. The 1v4. This is a BBG poach. I don't think Andbox Poach was making this play happen. New poach is easy for
Early
new poach.
Andbox, like this guy was a beast in early Andbox with some of the
Yeah.
stuff that you were
Well,
doing.
it's a bit different going from like I pretty much only played Sova Viper into Omen. Like you
Mhm.
can't really make that play on like Sova or Viper, or I pretty much only played Sova on Haven. But Omen is so much fun to like play in those situations and be able to make those maneuvers and stuff. I mean, I didn't use any flash or smokes there, but just the flash is incredible.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, you could absolutely tell there was a difference in impact that you were just having as an individual, looking really good individually on the team. I mean, in fact, genuinely, at least in this game, everybody was making impact plays. And one of the things that I
Yeah.
was most impressed about with the team being so new was how refined and decisive the decisions were, and then how refined like the retakes were. I thought that all of the retake and post plant play from you guys was so good, and again, just for being such a new team was really impressive. Like on this map specifically, I feel like you won this game on defense. Just every time Sentinels were in a site and about to plant the spike, you guys just activated. It's like it's not even a retake. You're just pushing back into the site as the spike is going down, and you were constantly catching timings on them. Like Will would always be in with the flash, and you guys would be trading off of him super quick. Like, do you feel that you guys have just this 5-man roster? You guys just are in sync, like. It's just one of those teams that works well together, because in those moments where I see you guys playing with that pace and that fast coordination, I feel like those are sometimes some of the things that we're missing from Andbox in the past.
Yeah, I think like everyone is doing a really good job of playing together and like in sync, and I think a lot of that comes down to like, it happens in certain teams where you don't necessarily like are trusting the calls, but if everybody's on the same page and doing like what the call is, it's just night and day the difference of how like rounds can play out. But specifically to this match against Sentinels, a lot of times I would like, we kind of I don't know. Sentinels on Haven at least was we had a pretty good idea of where they were ending most of those CT rounds, and I think that um, if we do have the numbers, like if we had the numbers on that side of the map, we would try and be more interruptive rather than like commit to a retake because we have like set retakes and stuff like that. But a lot of times, teams are just not ready for those like interruptive yeah, like you said, retakes before the plant goes down. So I would just like call if like we had numbers there, like just let's go, let's go. And I mean, especially I think it was not sure what round it was, but one of them was like kind of like a half buy, and we had already gambled kind of towards C, and Rocker had a judge in garage, and he's just like already there. I'm like, yeah, let's just go. I mean, he's right there, and just ran through as we kind of just did like a half retake, basically only committing some abilities, and it just worked out.
I'm curious. I don't know if you heard like a lot of the clips that Shazam was talking about on stream about like how teams have gotten the chance to prepare. Because
hmm
to me, it didn't really. This game, specifically the BBG Sen game, like didn't feel like you guys were anti-stratting or anything like that. It was just like you were getting good reads on them. You were doing very honestly basic stuff. To like both on the attack side on Ascents and then obviously this defensive side that you're talking about too. Like what do you make of the fact that it's like, oh well, they got so much time to prepare, I didn't have any film on them? Because to me when I watched it, it's like basic stuff that you guys were really putting together, and I don't think you've had too much time to really make too much complex stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were playing it match by match, like we prepped as much for Beast Coast as we did Sentinels. It wasn't like we were spending a lot of time counter stratting. I mean, given we had a few ideas of how to counter strat if they did certain things, because Sentinels does play like when they have certain ultimates up, they play a very like kind of like repeat rounds and stuff like that. So we had
Yeah.
an idea of like if they had these ults or if they're one off, like they may go for this, and we kind of set up for that. But I mean, other than that, we just kind of looked at, their tendencies they've always played on Haven and just how to capitalize on that. And I mean, uh, yeah, we prepped for them and they couldn't really prep for us. We had the surprise factor of being a new roster, and that's kind of what comes with that. But I mean, I don't know. At the end of the day, we're still a team that's, only been playing together for a week. That's what we're going to have against going to every team. Like, you have that kind of like surprise factor. And I think that honestly is a big deal, though. I think that's kind of what helped us in Andbox originally too. We kind of
Mhm.
came with a new meta comp, and people didn't necessarily know how to play against it. And when you first play against something you don't understand, it's very hard to counter
I guess that's why I'm
during the
so
game.
like slightly like confused though, because like in terms of comps, like you guys are running the same thing that we've been running in NA for forever, right? At just
Yeah,
standard double duelist. So I don't know.
yeah. I mean, yeah, we had a bit of an advantage because we got a prep, but they've been a team for a year, so I mean, I don't know like what it's they played like they didn't play like Sentinels. Like there was obviously clear times where they should have killed us in certain scenarios, and we got away with it. Um, I feel like they just weren't hitting the shots they normally hit, and a lot of times that is what it comes down to in Sentinels. Almost every time I've played Sentinels, they they're not like a super tactically like sound team, like, or at least like, they don't have like super crazy strats and stuff like that, but they're
Hmm.
super, super good at punishing mistakes and playing like interruptive and not letting you, have a chance to recover from like that mistake you make. So I think that we kind of just were like, we were just all clicking, like we weren't really making that many mistakes. And if the Sentinels gave us any room, we were just like taking that and hitting those shots.
Yeah, for sure. Do you? I mean, I guess if you looking at the bracket overall, your game was the one that kicked off then a series of upsets that led to. Now we're in this scenario where the top 3 teams at Masters all didn't make it, which is, I mean, obviously no one is really going to expect that going into it. It is mad that all the top 3 didn't make it: FaZe, Gen.G, and Sentinels. Do you think then that the like the prep factor? Do you think that that is a factor in all of these games? When you're looking at this, like there has been an immense amount of discussion now the past couple of days about
Yeah.
these teams who weren't in Masters being able to prepare for this tournament for weeks and weeks, whereas the guys who were in Masters have only had a week and a half to attempt to make an adjustment if they even want to. Like we saw FaZe attempt to make a little bit of an adjustment in that game, like they had Corey playing Breach instead on Haven, for instance. He was playing Reyna as well, where previously it was just Raze on every map. But do you think that the prep factor is what leads to all these upsets, or is there something else at play?
I mean, I think there is like a small factor. I think it is a bit of unfortunate that like the teams that did go all the way through Masters, at the very end, like basically the top 3 who didn't make it have to go through Opens almost instantly again and don't have like that much time as like teams that weren't playing in Masters. Um, and like I'm not sure though. Like a lot of it comes down to like just it's crazy how like one ability in a round can like change around completely. So like one match you have this flash hitting here and that wins the round, and then next match it doesn't. So like there's like I feel like a random factor going on a lot of these like top 8 teams, top 10 teams. Like anyone can beat anyone like on a given day. There's no dominant team in NA as far as I'm concerned. Like Sentinels has done great, but they've shown several times that they're not, they can't always win. Like it's not like Vision Strikers. Going on here in NA. So I'm honestly not too sure. Like there is a prep factor. Like teams did have some advantage on those top 3 teams, but I mean, I don't know. Like they against like newer rosters, it's difficult. But I mean, FaZe playing or Gen.G playing Cloud9, like Cloud9 has shown that roster. They've had I think some VODs already played on that roster. Like
Yep. Well,
and then
maybe without Vice, they haven't really shown too much. But even then, it's just like you're swapping Vice in for Poise, or who is
Yeah.
it that
Yeah, you're
switched?
correct.
In either case, like,
and
yeah,
then the other
I
match
think
was FaZe
version
version
one.
1. I mean, they played each other what 3
Version-
times now in the VCT. So
Yeah, they played each other every time. Well,
yeah.
I gotta ask you then. What do you think? I mean, you said like the top 8, 10 teams. It feels like any of them could take a match off of each other on any given day.
Mhm.
What is the reason? Because I've heard this has been a long discussion. It's from everything from that time Daps was saying that people have already mastered the mechanical skill of the game to because the game is only MR13 and not 16 like CS. That's the reason for the randomness. What's your feel on that? Why do you think that's the case?
I think it's just a culmination of a lot of things. I think a lot of it, honestly, is based on how the economy and the round system works with pistols. Like winning a pistol and winning that, like just winning the pistol, like makes such a huge deal on a half and how the economy can play out. And I think one of the reasons why, like versus Sentinels, for example, we did really well is because we won, I think, 3 out of the 4
3 out of 4.
pistols. And the pistol that we lost, we forced second and 1. So like we just like controlling the economy on these games is like a huge like advantage, and I think that that's causing like these teams that aren't necessarily prepared for like a pistol or something. If they lose, they go down in economy. It can be a snowball factor. But the randomness is like it's just those short games and teams not prepping, teams underestimating other teams, focusing on other things they shouldn't be focusing on. It's like just a culmination of a lot of things. I don't think there's any single reason why this is happening, but it's interesting that it happens more in NA than I think any other region.
Yeah, in EU it's like 7 out of 8. Korea it's like
Yeah.
8 out of 8 are qualified or at the certain same point or whatever it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
The differences in formats makes a difference.
Yeah.
So are we saying that this is like a game thing, or are we saying that it's like a combination of the game, MR13, like also the structure? Because to me, I see this and I'm like, yeah, okay, they lost the match, Sentinels, and I'm not like trying to write off the fact that you guys beat them, but like this happens in CS too. It's not a difference, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
the best teams lose in groups and they come
Mhm.
back in playoffs and they go on to win the tournament or at least make finals, you know? So to me, yeah, maybe maybe it feels a little bit more random, but we're so early, you know, that I don't feel comfortable saying like, yeah, there's certain aspects of, you know, the abilities, MR13, because I feel like we've seen, you know, pistols affect the games in CS. We've seen that for a while. Um, and I think there's just more to it than simply just saying a couple different things are at play. I think it is pretty much everything, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like in NA specifically, like just the way certain teams are like practicing or approaching matches is like maybe different than other regions. Like I think there's several teams who aren't putting in like as much time into like actually prepping for matches and stuff like that. So, you know, just like us, for example, like Sentinels didn't necessarily have like much time to prep for us or really know what to expect. But just because, you know, we did our homework and stuff like that and that we were prepared for them, that just made the difference.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I heard as well, that kind of off the back of this topic, was I think it was Hazed was talking about on one of the streams how like basically in most of the contracts at this point, players have requisite
Oh, the
time
Flomco stream.
to
Yeah.
yeah, it was on the Flomco stream that players have requisite time that they have to be streaming, and players are streaming so much that it takes away from time actually being able to play the game. And I remember at the beginning of the or at some point early on in the game, when you had switched over, I think you had just stopped streaming entirely, if I remember correctly, and it seemed like you were just laser focused on you were trying to go pro and be the
Yeah.
best player possible. You just weren't really, you're putting the personal brand to the side. But do you think that factors in at all, or how do you feel about that?
I mean, if you're streaming like, you know, a couple hours every a couple days or something, no. But I think if you're, you know, only streaming 4 hours a day and then streaming for 8 hours, yeah, like it's a world of difference. Like it's clear those teams that are doing that aren't doing well. Um, but like I don't know, it's dependent like on the org. You know, like you say you have required streaming hours, but if you're signed as a pro, you know the org is gonna like they want you to win. Like it's not just about like hitting those quote unquote required streaming hours. Like it's
Yeah.
it's not many orgs finding players for streaming hours. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. I mean, also, as if the two don't directly correlate. Like Baby Bay, like FaZe does well, all of a sudden Baby Bay is getting 6,000 viewers. I mean, there's
Yeah, exactly.
clearly one can affect the other a lot.
The best way to
not
grow
just
your stream is be
independent.
the best. Like that's like at least in a competitive
Yeah.
light, you know.
I think one of the other things that to me was more interesting in that like Hayes clip was like the culture in NA oftentimes is let's stream, let's play ranked, let's play pugs, and like focusing on that and being good at that aspect, and that leads to puggy styles in their actual teams, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're always practicing playing ranked, then you're gonna bring that sort of stuff into you know into your actual matches, right?
hmm Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that can be learned from ranked, but I mean, just like you said, you're also gonna learn like a ton of bad habits. Um, I play I play quite a bit of ranked, but like not to that same level as like a lot of the I guess a normal pro would. Like I spend a lot more time. I feel like you know watching other regions or coming up with things in a server and stuff like that. And I think it's just about a good balance. But yeah, I mean, ranked also can just like tilt you beyond belief. You know, like it's
So
even at
what's
Radiant, you're playing with idiots. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
yeah, man. No
Yeah.
brains, no brains. What is it like on the topic of like what you spend your time doing? What region do you prefer watching right now? Because we're currently having this debate before Masters 2 on Plat
Mhm.
Chat. Like, who's the best region and stuff like that. What is the stuff that you're seeing in regional Valorant right now?
I think the region I watch the most is definitely Korea. I was on a wicked sleep schedule kind of right before I started streaming again. So I mean, I was like, "Oh, lunchtime, let's watch Korea at 4 in the morning," you know? Like,
Early
so
game
yeah, I
hours.
watched pretty much mostly Korea. I love watching Vision Strikers and New Turn play. Uh, and to that region, it's just really interesting because Vision Strikers is so dominant, but it's like I mean, it looks like they're smurfing in Korea, but you don't know if that's because they're that good or if it's because the opposition just isn't quite there. It's really excited for international play, but um, I don't get to watch as much EU as I'd like because usually that kind of collides with like our scrim hours.
And nobody
Um,
does. So like we're chilling.
Poor you. So
yeah,
so tragic. But I mean, I guess in a way that kind of makes sense that you saying that you enjoy watching Vision Strikers. This all aligns with like the Poach in-game leading narrative and Andbox's kind of community narrative that Andbox was like the tactical team in NA. You would have well thought out executes. You were the only team that was using Viper at the time. Or well, maybe not the only. I guess We Did was playing Viper sometimes. But at the time you were the only like team competing at a high level that was using Viper and with a lot of success. Like I think everyone was saying at the time, and I probably would have agreed, that Split was your best map. It was the map where you were getting a lot of value from the Viper. You had a lot of well thought out executes playing off the Viper, and with like Android double satcheling in places as the wall would go down and the flash would come in from the breach, and you just had a lot of well thought out plays, and then it created that Andbox is the tactical team narrative. Do you think that is an apt narrative? Like, do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I mean, we put in a lot of time with that team on figuring out like what we think is gonna just beat teams and keep them on their toes. I think a lot of people kind of look down on certain agents just because they didn't, play it in ranked or they didn't understand how it could work in a team environment with the styles they played. But I mean, I think honestly in this game, any agent composition can work. You just got to figure out how like to play to its strengths. Viper, especially with the patch, I'm really looking forward to. I think we might honestly dabble with it after VCT, kind of see how it works post patch because I still haven't really gotten a chance to mess with it. But yeah, I mean, with Andbox, we coaching helped a lot with that too. We developed a lot of executes and stuff like that that just made sense with the comp. And I don't know. It was just like it was bizarre how careless teams were. I feel like to try and do things that were different. And I think that's like the key to winning, like especially like that surprise factor talking about. I mean, I wish it was streamed, but we played that March monthly right before
Yeah.
this qualifier, got 2-0'd by Renegades, and that was the hardest match I've played in Valorant by far. They played a composition that was Raze, Sky, Astra,
Astra.
Sage, like yeah, it was
That is.
absolutely ridiculous. If you don't know what you're going into on that match, like if you saw how it was streamed, like they played the best Astra I've played so far. And you couldn't play retake on a site. If you tried to retake, every single of those like lanes would be an Astra suck, then a slow. If nade was up, it'd be there. Like it was crazy to deal with. And like I think Renegades is doing a good job because they, as far as I'm concerned, that was the hardest composition I've played against in Valorant so far. So I think that you can make anything work, and that's a prime example of kind of like using different agents that you wouldn't normally see paired together out off meta comps. Like that was ridiculous. That was super hard to deal with, and it's just the same concept with Viper. And I think we're going to see that again once like people start exploring Viper post patch and even maybe Yoru because Yoru is getting some buffs now. I think Yoru can potentially work. I think it just you have to do the right things. You can't play him like any other duelist or anything like that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. You said you were dabbling in other agents. Y'all trying any Yoru or what?
I really
collecting dust on the shelf.
I've tried to think of some things that could work. Like I think that in a way, Astra and Yoru can play off each other with like walls, TPs, fake smokes, stuff like that. Being able to place utility across the map can definitely help Yoru, and I mean, maybe even Viper, but it's still just, I feel like with Yoru, it's like you're almost always taking a risk kind of no matter what you do with the play. Like if you're gonna commit a TP, like you're still like risking that they might have known where you're going or something like that. It's really scary with him. I'm
At
not
least on
sure yet.
attack, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I feel like there's a lot of potential on defense for just the ways that he can be there, right as the
Yeah.
hits come. But
Yeah, I mean, it just timing like TP back to certain like TPs back to certain places. I've seen in ranked actually work really well, but it's so hard to fit him into like he just has to have his own composition. You can't just slot him in for a duelist.
yeah,
Like you'd have to completely recreate like how you play. Like you'd have to have, I think, like an Astra Viper. Like you have to have like certain agents that can really assist.
dude,
Yeah.
I'm just so terrified of these Astra sucks plus the
Oh,
Viper mollies. Like at the same because some of the other stuff is like not as oppressive because Raisins only have one and stuff like that, but Viper has two mollies at the same
yeah.
time. Ooh,
Bro,
that's gonna be brutal, dude.
I
I
mean,
really wish we could have watched that RNG game.
It was actually crazy. Like I was trying to come up with like 4 different ways to approach the game, like while it was going on. Like, and at the end of the day, we came up like I'm not gonna say it, but like there's like only one way I really figured out
Mhm.
how to like counter it, but it was just like ridiculous of how difficult. Like I tried like everything I've tried with every other composition, and it was just nothing was working. And it was we were just really surprised by it. Really, like they just played really well on top of a super off meta comp. It was hard to deal with.
yeah. I mean, we're just still at a point in the game, and honestly, probably forever will be, given the fact that there's a new agent every 2 months.
Yeah,
There are infinite amounts of potential utility combos that are yet to really be explored. And the more watching more Astra this weekend, just seeing how powerful she can actually be. I mean, the
Hmm.
gravity well is just insane. It's just
Yeah, it
so
is.
powerful. There's so many little plays being done. Like I remember, despite them getting rolled actually by an Astra, like TSM were running Cutler on Astra as well. Like at the beginning of their pistol round on bind attack, they would just put the gravity well into lamps, and Wardell would
Mhm.
just smoke and dash up short with a shorty, and he just shorties this guy who's caught in the center of the gravity. Like little plays like that. But like on defense, Immortals just had such oppressive setups on Haven. Like there's just no way. Like TSM were desperately trying to get into C, but there's just a gravity well with a tripwire and a cage on it, and like
Yeah.
what are you supposed to do when you're trying to get into C and there's all this shit in the way?
Yeah.
She seems like she's gonna be mega powerful, and is kind of in a way like in a way akin to Zarya in Overwatch with her ult, but it's like the
Yep.
most plain sight way to see a utility combo, an ability that keeps people locked in a place. You can combo mollies, nades, so many things off of it, and I feel as the game continues to go and as more agents are added, like to my previous point, there are just going to be a million of these utility combos moving forward, and it's just going to come down to the teams that are actually putting in the time to develop these things, like Renegades. Honestly, I don't know how well they actually ended up doing in the qualifier, or if they continued running that comp. But those, like the being able to bring out those plays on a whim and just throw things like that in, even like 2 rounds in a game, can make all the difference in what is
Yeah,
an
for sure.
MR13 game.
I think it is really map dependent, but like when I first like I think the first few days I started scrimming the BBG, like I wanted to play Astra. Like I think Astra is really good.
Mhm.
But I don't think it's a 1-for-1 swap with Omen. I think that's a mistake a lot of teams are making. I mean, I think that's honestly like I mean, it works, but I just feel like you're not getting as much out of Astra. Like I think Immortals and TSM were just doing the 1-for-1 replacement of like Omen to Astra, but like it can be good. But I think to get max value out of her, you're combining those other abilities, Sage, Raze, Killjoy, Sky, whatever it may be. Um, but I think she's insane. It's just going to be really interesting. Like once teams actually have time to like I think
Yeah.
after this VCT, like I said, we might dabble with Viper. We're probably gonna dabble with Astra too. Like try and figure out what maps it makes the most sense on and how to utilize her.
This is gonna be like the weirdest, pre challengers 1 week because there's just so much
Yeah.
to mess around with. Like obviously, most teams have probably already messed around with Astra at this point. I'd say,
Mhm.
well, except the Masters teams and the new teams. But yeah, I wanted to ask you about like the approach for when changes like this happen, when a new agent hits, or when an agent gets buffed and is clearly now viable again. Like, what do you do to be able to like figure out if it's something that you guys want to actually spend time investing in, like new strats and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think like once we saw how Renegades used it, it definitely like that was kind of like an indicator like, oh yeah, she can be really insane. But I mean, even before that, I feel like people kind of experiment with her. Like when she first came out, I played like I don't know, I played a shitload of ranked games and all I played is Astra. Even though like she's not that good in ranked, like she's kind of a character like you have to have a lot of team play with, and obviously
Yeah,
there's not much team play going on in ranked. It was just
not much
insightful to see
talking going
like
on in ranked.
yeah. It was insightful to see like how she can be used, and then like you kind of experiment with things like, oh, does this work? You just like experiment in like a server, and then once you come up with a few like kind of set plays, and you try scrimming her and see if it works, and that's kind of what we did with BBG, and like I started playing her and scrims for the first 2 days, and it was not working. Like we were just gonna at least because I was trying to slot in exactly for, like how they played Omen and how Foe played, and it was just like not making sense. Like it was clear an Omen was needed, but like if you
Hey, you just went straight for it. You're like, yeah, let's try it. First day,
well, they were like
replacing the phone. I'm gonna try Astra. Let's go.
no, it was more like they were kind of on board with Astra being good as well, and they're like, oh, you try either or, whatever you think's better, and so I just tried both kind of, and it obviously made more sense for Omen the way we were currently playing,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think she can be really good though for sure.
When you're talking about needing both, what is missing then with having just the Astra that you want to run the Omen too?
Um, Honestly, if I just had to pick one agent, like I think Sage, like the Sage, because like it's basically once you see that orb down, like you see those stars down, it's like okay, we can try and bait this out, or like okay, let's try to get past this some way. We can zoom by it or whatever, certain util. But having the slows there as well, like if you don't have an Astra like orb on a certain lane, being able to have the Sage slow there and or pairing the Sage slow like with the sucks or whatever, like on retakes was just ridiculous. I think there's a lot of agents that can work with it. Like Balla was saying Viper. Braze was super annoying, but like the Sage seemed to make a huge difference of how like difficult it was. Like if they knew you were gonna hit a certain lane, like you just weren't getting in. Like it
It just
was
it,
ridiculous.
it just feels like we have the post plant mollies
Yeah.
set up, right, where you keep them off the spike. This is like, we're just gonna play defense now and just hold down the site. You guys can't even get in because you got two slows, you got two gravity, or what is it? Is it three gravity wells you can hold,
Might as well
or
be
is
a
it only
million.
two?
Might as well be 20.
It's two.
And it's
Yeah,
just
so two slows, two gravity wells, nades, whatever, man. Like
I
it's
mean,
just
we
ridiculous.
on Haven against Renegades, it got to the point where if we had to retake A, I was like, you can't go through the normal though. You just did a heaven drop. We did like 4 heaven. Like you couldn't get through. Like I'm not even kidding. Like it's like, okay, we use the R utility. Okay, then they pop a suck. Okay, then the slow comes down. And then another slow comes down, or like another suck comes down. It's like you just can't get through. It was like ridiculous.
yeah. Okay. This has to do a bit more with Omen, and I'm gonna ask you because you're playing Omen now. I
Hmm.
see this all the time. I'm on the timeline. I wake up. I'm scrolling. I see Omen mains complaining about the cost of paranoia. I see it all the time. I see it daily from Omen mains, and I get it. I get it if you're playing Omen that you have to commit 400 every round to get paranoia, but paranoia is just so fucking powerful.
It's the best flash in the game.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Do you
I no.
think that the price point is reasonable for paranoia? Do you tilt every round playing Omen having to spend 400 on it? Are you going to tweet about it later?
No, I think
Okay.
it's justified. Like, well, I mean, it sucks. It's the most expensive, like ability in the game. But like, if it's 300, it's too cheap. Like, it's too good for 300. It's like, what do you do? Like, of course it
Yeah.
has to be there. Like, I've gotten used to being classic flash on pistol, and my classic's gotten a lot better. I like that, but yeah, I don't know. Like, it's you have to get light armor in some rounds, but it's just the flash is it's just too good. Like, it has to be like expensive. I don't know.
I agree. I just had to ask. It tilts me every day. It tilts me because it has to be 400.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if I played Omen before it was 300, like, yeah, obviously, like, the Omen mains, like, yeah, it's like, it sucks. You used to get full armor and then flash, on most buys, but now you gotta get light a lot of
Poach
time.
comes over to Omen. He's like, wait a second, this is only 400 credits. What are these guys complaining
Yeah,
about?
right? Yeah.
Flashing all A main. It's ridiculous. You can just flash all of A main, all of B main on Ascent. Like it's just so powerful.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask though too, just about the recent patch with the actual Viper changes and being one of the resident Viper players of NA, one of the very few. How are you feeling about the changes? She got buffed. The most notable thing being if you just catch a light breeze of any of her utility, you take 50 damage right away. How are you feeling about it? Too much? Too little? Necessary?
I think it's
unnecessary?
gonna be too much. Like, I mean, I was playing her because I thought she was really good, but before the patch, like, they made, like, God, how many changes did they make? You have, like, the instant decay on touch. I think you throw mollies faster. You can pick up your smoke with no delay to, like, replace it now. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, it's just so much better. Like, I haven't played her really yet or explored anything played against her post patch, but I mean, I actually did play a ranked yesterday where I walked through a Viper thing and I was just like, wow, it really is instant. I thought it might like kind of like, trickle down or suck down really fast your health, but I think it's going to be ridiculous. Like how just, I mean, anything like how you approach like hitting a site. Like if you just time your smoke well or your wall, like they're just coming in with no armor. It's like, I mean, that's insane. I feel like, I don't
I,
know.
mean,
I never
And then
thought
you have
about it that way.
mollies that
Just
make them.
no armor.
Yeah, like if you just know they're gonna hit the site and then like they don't have time or whatever, and you have a smoke on the main, like okay, they're just all running through weak. Like it's like a pistol around there, like
yeah, yeah. They execute on your site in a pistol round. You're sitting there with two of you in a crossfire with frenzies. It's just over. It is.
yeah.
It is
So
just over.
I think she's gonna be insane. Granted, I'm not sure like if it's gonna be like warranted to run it like every map or whatever, but like for sure, like I think you're gonna see it, on like your splits and ice boxes and stuff like that again.
Yeah. Did you ever really try it on Bind? That's the only map in NA where you
Yeah,
never really saw it, but like you see Fnatic doing it all the time, and who else? Ascend, etc.
I
Mhm.
think we played one official actually for about a week and a half. We tried to, like create another off meta comp for Bind. It was Sova, Viper, I think it was Phoenix, Brimstone, and Cypher. And it was just we were exploring like if we did like, those ridiculous post plants with Viper Mollies, Brim Molly, Brim Ult, stuff like that. And then Ye was on Viper. And I think we played like a match actually on
Mamba
that
mode.
comp. Yeah. We won, I think, but it was like
13.
it
You didn't win. You stopped. 13-1. What the heck?
but in scrims it didn't go as well. Like it was working, but it was like we went for a lot. Like we had some crazy ass executes and defaults and stuff like that, but it was way too hard to like default and bind without getting interrupted constantly when setting up like a lot of this util.
Mhm.
So it didn't really work. Like I definitely think it can work, but like for our team at the time, like it was just like it just wasn't working the way we wanted it to.
Yeah, I
So
think
we
that's
went back.
why a lot of like Fnatic has added like a second droner. Like they play Sky and
Hmm.
Sova so that they can get that space where they can
Yeah.
execute with. Um, yeah, this is the grand finals too. You guys pulled out like the randomness.
What was that
It,
in?
it was the Nerd Street Gamers November monthly. That was the one that you guys won. I think that was after the Renegades Invitational, right? That was like the peak
Yeah.
of Andbox in my
I mean,
mind.
that was the first Andbox showing. Was just a tournament win. I can't.
Mhm.
I know you beat Immortals in the finals. Did you play Cloud9 in that too? I can't remember. But
Um,
I mean, regardless, you got a tournament win
I
that
don't
had
think so.
tier 1, 1.5 teams at the time. That was your
Yeah.
first
Oh,
showing.
actually, no, we did. We beat them in the groups best of
Oh,
one. I think we
yeah,
beat them
right.
on
It just
split.
wasn't streamed. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's right there, the 1-0.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Do you feel that coming out the gate with this new team and winning a tournament right away, do you think that maybe puts you, I don't know, like too high of expectations for the team moving forward?
Um, maybe, but I feel like I don't know. Andbox was weird. Like I feel like we had like almost a higher ceiling than like any team, to be honest. Like we played extremely well. We improved at a really rapid rate, but it was just some external factors that made it more difficult. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I always look back at like just kind of like our record and stuff, and I mean, really only lost to like
Sentinels.
tier one teams. Like it wasn't like it was just like we lost to NV here, we lost to Sentinels, we lost to like LG right when they started their peak. But other than that, like we wouldn't really lose. Like I don't know. Like yeah, the expectations were really high for us, but I feel like it was just, to be honest.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess then when you do look back on your time with Andbox, are you satisfied with the run that you had? Do you wish that you could have done more? I mean, I know there was that one tournament as well where you weren't able to play. I can't remember the reason. Were you ill at the time?
Yeah, I had
It was the first strike calls, right?
yeah, I was like just I don't even know. Like it was right around like it might have been COVID, and I honestly never knew, but I was just like I was trying to play but I was vomiting like nonstop during scrims, and even the qualifier right before that, like to qualify or qualifying match, I was like vomiting during that. I don't know, it was like it's just a straight week where I was just like it might have just been like food poisoning or something, but I was like deathly sick.
Yeah. So I guess I'm back to the first thing I asked, because I asked like 2 questions in that. But then looking back on the whole thing, what's your take? Like, are you satisfied with the history of Andbox with that 5-man roster?
Yeah, for the most part. I'm a little disappointed we never got over the hump of like NV or Sentinels. I think at the end of the day they kind of look towards roster changes rather than working through our problems to try and like, get over that hump, which I don't really think was the right way to approach it, because I
Was
think
that a
we could
player
have.
thing or an org thing?
Um
Or
it,
a
wa- it
mix of
was
both?
a no, it was a player thing. It was like kind of like just decided with some of the players and stuff like that. But it was like I don't know, because we were always really close to Sentinels, even though we are getting 2-0'd. Like honestly, like those ice boxes I remember came down to like 1 or 2 rounds, and it was just yeah, it was pretty heartbreaking because I knew we could have beaten them. But it was just like a lot of times our map pools weren't that great for it either. Like our best
Mhm.
maps are probably like split and icebox, but then Sentinels are also at the time really good at those. And then I was like constantly just playing Viper against Sentinels, which worked against a lot of teams, but Sentinels not as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, I was even watching. I watched some of those games back real quick before this. I was just watching
Mhm.
that Ascent one that Bert pulled up a second ago. Because I was wanting to look at. I was spotting the difference. I was trying to look at like what was going on with
Yeah.
Andbox then, and then versus BBG beating Sentinels just now on Ascent, and even back then, despite losing, it did feel like you guys were playing well. Like you guys had some
Yeah.
nice ideas in that game. You had some really interesting rounds with mid control. Like like Android would be pushed up all the way through mid. You would take mid control really fast. You'd be pushing into spawn, flashing through, like chasing players into CT spawn at the beginning of rounds. Like, and it reminded me of just the fact that despite you guys never being able to like have a really good result in a tier 1 tournament, yeah, you always were on the cusp, and you guys
Yeah.
always had nice ideas that you brought to the games. And I think that your reputation as one of the more intelligent tactical teams, and also a reputation of being one of the better teams in regards to sort of the teamwork generally, still does reign true. My feel always when I was watching your team back then, and some of these closer losses and some of your wins as well, like when you were able to beat T1 and qualify for this challenger that I think we're looking at right now. I felt like Andbox always existed in this space where once you reached a certain caliber of team, there was just an individual skill difference that the team couldn't get over. But you guys were better as a team than so many of these teams. You could beat teams on paper with players better than you, but there was a threshold. Like once you got to like an Envy or a Sentinels tier team, I felt like the skill, the gap was too big. But against T1, still really skilled players, but as a team, you were clearly better. That was always my feel. And that's where the difference kind of always came down to for me. What do you think it was though?
Um, I think it could partially be that. I feel like we had players like we could play to that same like skill level individually. Maybe come to the match, people got nervous or we didn't play to like as high as like we could, you know, like our skill ceiling. But honestly, I think a lot of it was kind of difference in opinion of how to approach certain matches and or like, you know, not necessarily like mid round falling out of like the call of what it should have been and stuff like that. And there's some personality clashes for sure, and it kind of impacted in game.
Those all like start basically after success, right? Where it's like, you know, you
Yeah.
you win those couple tournaments, and then maybe it's almost like somewhat of a honeymoon period type of thing. I've felt that a lot on other teams as well. Um,
Yeah.
I guess where I'm trying to go with what I'm saying is we reached this challengers one area, right? And everybody still had, like Wyatt's saying, this perception that these guys along with xset are and to some degree LG, but that was like a completely different style, right? It's xset and Andbox like look like they understand the game, they fundamentally are playing it at a level that others aren't, where others are relying on, you know, individual skill. And that like stopped working. I think Winter Championship was like kind of working through groups up until you face Sentinels, and then Challengers one, it just like disappears. That seems like it's all due to this like teammate clashing that you're saying, right?
Yeah, and I mean we got a little complacent. I think near the end we weren't like creating as much stuff. We were kind of trying to go back to
Mm.
stuff that had worked and or like playing more to individual skill. But I mean, okay, so that I feel like the best way to sum it up was our team was at best when we were super structured and had like strats that everybody would follow and everyone if they just did their job, like it literally came down to certain rounds I would just call like, hey, we're doing this strat. And then I would just throw them all and sit in a corner and like that's all I had to do the entire round or something. And then like if everybody does their job, the round would just like somehow come together and just be a breeze. But near the end, like if we started losing to Sentinels or stuff, like people would just try to take in their own hands, you know, and try to like make up for it. And that's where we
Yeah.
kind of struggled. Like if we weren't playing as a team, if you just weren't doing your job, we lost. Like that's what it just came down to.
Was there an aspect of the fact that you guys were that you know team that could be the upstart and you know break into tier one and stuff like that? Have these other teams affect, you know, like actually starting to watch you guys, actually starting to really, because again, there was a point where everybody was like, yeah, it's Andbox, like they're one of the best teams, like they're going to qualify for Masters for sure.
Hmm.
Did you feel like some of the other teams were really taking notice and trying to stop that, or?
Yeah, I mean, we had like when we started, I think we had like we were undefeated on split for a while. Like we were like 16-0 or something like that. And then like once teams started like yeah, like our split got a lot harder. It actually became one of our weaker maps near the end. And that's
Mhm.
because like we didn't really like we created some new stuff, but we still like our default was kind of the same. We created a lot of new executes that were actually really cool, but basically, yeah, teams started to kind of read us a bit better, and like we're countering kind of like how I played Viper and stuff like that. And it was difficult because we were trying to like we knew how effective we could be as a team, but it just yeah, it got to that point where teams are starting to you know prepare for us, and then on top of that, if like we started losing, it'd become like a little shaky, and then people will just start doing, you know, everyone just try to make up for like us not running the strat correctly or whatever, and then making up for it with individual skill.
Gotcha. Yeah, and then eventually, yeah, after what challengers can't
Challengers
remember
one.
at one point. Yeah, I can't remember at what point it was that then the roster had made the changes where then you were no longer on the roster, and then shortly after that, Android left the roster as well and moved over to NRG, and then so in that time period between then and now with BBG, I guess what were you thinking? You know, I'm assuming were you just getting offers right away? Were you just looking for a team right away, or what was the plan then?
Yeah, I mean, like right after, I was just like, Andbox was nice enough to let me out of my contract, so I was able to like kind of explore without a buyout. Andbox is always good to me as an org. They're actually really good. So that was nice. And then I started getting offers and started reaching out to certain teams and players and stuff like that, and considered several things, but a lot of it kind of came down to like waiting, and I didn't really want to wait. Like I wanted to play this VCT, so it was kind of like like certain scenarios where I would form a team and play in a VCT, or it was like a couple teams that like were just needing one like built by gamers. And I scrimmed with them, and it just like it clicked pretty well, and it was just like a good fit. I got along with all the guys, and they were ready, and I really wanted to not waste any time and compete and try to make the next Masters and just play for this VCT.
Well, you didn't. We're talking about like how
no
Andbox
time
is
wasted.
like. It's like, well, we just could never crack that wall of Sentinels, and then instantly, boom.
Yeah, it worked out.
Yeah. I think, well, what do we want to get into next? I mean, one of the things I did want to talk about, though, there's just no natural segue to this whatsoever. I mean, just literally no segue, so I could just throw it out there. I suppose it was something we could have talked about earlier, but it is something when we talk about like the agents and shit. I'm going for it. One of the things that we've been talking about on the show, and it's been quite a big topic of discussion, a lot because of 100 Thieves and their comp running the single duelist. You guys are running, I believe, are you running full-time Jett? I know you were running Jett, at least against Sentinels on both maps. You have Rarkar playing Jett. Do you think that a full-time Jett is necessary right now?
Definitely not necessary, but dependent on the player and the map, I think like it obviously can have like a lot more impact. Like Rarkar is a really good opper, and I think like obviously like if you have a good opper, the no-brainer is just to go Jett. It's really hard to pull off an op on another agent right now. But it's not full time. He's playing Sky on Split, and then I think we might even explore and playing Sky on other maps and stuff. And yeah, I mean, I like I said earlier, I feel like you can make any agent composition work. Just you got to kind of play to the strengths of the agents and then the players as well.
Gotcha.
What about like, because I think you basically gave the same answer that we came up with last week on the podcast, but single duelist versus double duelist, right? Like adding a Sage or adding a Breach into the typical comps. Obviously, BBG's not doing that. Most of the time, you guys are running double duelist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you fit on that scale, on that debate? Because EU's obviously doing a lot of single, sometimes even no duelists. Yeah.
I think that less duelists currently can be better. Like I honestly just love Sky and Breach. I feel like it just makes everything so much easier. Being able to have those 3 flashes is just like insane. But I think it is really map dependent. Like I do really like having like a Phoenix and a Jett on certain maps, or a Raze and a Jett on certain maps. But I think it's going to come to the point where teams realize that you don't necessarily need like those types of agents to do the same type of plays you want, I guess. Like
Mhm.
a lot of times people just relate aggression with like a duelist, but like honestly, I think you can be a lot more aggressive if you run single duelist, but you have a Breach or a Sky, because then you're able to do like these really, like crafty flashes with like aggression on both sides of like defense and attack.
Yeah.
It feels like the scale in NA is like, oh, if you don't have 2 duelists, like it's so hard to retake because you don't have like any sustainable, like, I don't know, like initiation tools. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, that's what other characters are literally for, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've always been a fan of like trying to just pair as like much utility as possible to make rounds easier. So
Mhm.
like it gets to a certain point where in a round that your duelist isn't going to have much impact with utility. But like a lot of times, you have all those other agents that are regenerating abilities and stuff that are going to have a lot more impact in a late round.
Yeah. When you're, I guess, leading now BBG and into the future, I was thinking about it because we were watching Bjor play there for a second, and Bjor has been known for just being like the killjoy player for a while, and he's really good at it as well. When it comes down to like player preference, agent selects like that, where he just loves playing killjoy, do you like to lean into players' comfortabilities in that way, even if it may sacrifice like an overall idea you have for how to approach a round or not a round rather, but like a map or a full game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be a good balance. Like, obviously, if you put a play on an agent who does not want to play that agent, it's probably not going to turn out too well. And I've seen that happen. But like, thankfully, with BBG, like right now, just the comps are playing, and like just the short time we had as a team, it just made most sense, to slot me in and kind of just like build upon what they had. But from everything that like we've talked about and stuff, everybody on the team is willing to play another agent. Like everybody's flexible, which is like honestly like I think pretty crazy to have. Like I don't like a lot of teams are there's certain players that are just super set in their ways. I'm going to play a duelist, nothing else, or something like that. Like Rakar, like we started split with me going to Sky, and then Rakar was gonna like opt kind of play Omen, but then it like just wasn't working as well. And then I went back, and he like basically volunteered to play Sky. And like he put in time outside of the server or outside of like scrims to like kind of like learn Sky and stuff like that. So like having players able to play other agents than their like preferred agents, I think is like insane. And that's kind of what I like, I guess, advertise once I kind of left Andbox, or just even when I was playing with Andbox, like I've gone on my way. Like obviously I feel like as a pro you should, like have like a pretty small agent pool, but you should be able to play like multiple agents at like a pro level. But I've pretty much got on my way to play like every agent and understand like how I guess to like play them at like a passable level. So like switching to Omen, like honestly, Omen was one of the agents in the game I probably had the least amount of playtime in, like overall. Like I don't know, I maybe have played like, like 20 pugs on Omen or something before like actually starting to scrim them and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the
And
difference. Pug time versus scrim time in my mind.
yeah, for sure. Like it's night and day, like the difference of how you approach these agents when going into those like difference in games. But the like being able to play multiple agents, I feel like just makes you so much more valuable. And then like once agent bans come out, or once nerfs are gonna hit, like we've already seen it, like with Jett nerfs hitting or certain nerfs hitting certain agents, and players just aren't gonna have the same impact. I think longevity in this game is gonna be based around players who are most flexible, and teams that are most flexible. Like we play this double duelist comp and stuff like that now, but next VCT we might be running no duelist and Viper Yoru. Like it's
Let's
like
go.
we're not gonna know about the Yoru, but
Give
my
me the
point is,
Yoru.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
man.
you got
So
to
it
be
sounds like
flexible.
BBG's like pretty selfless, like in general. Sounds like you
Yeah,
come in, you're like, they're like, yeah, man, just do what you want. Like I'm fine with it. And Rakar too. Rakar's like a new pickup for them as
yeah.
well, right? So
hmm
um is there any agent you wouldn't play? Like just
No, I mean, what's funny story is starting playing Valorant, like even before like starting to compete and stuff like that, I played with friends and stuff, and I had never unlocked Viper, and I basically told my friends, I'm never gonna unlock this agent as long as I play this this damn game, because it was just like terrible. But then
and now
Gordon,
you're the Viper in NA.
yeah, Gordon, the assistant coach at Andbox, basically approached me one day, like when we were gonna start scrimmage plays, like, "Are you willing to play Viper?" And I was like, "I'll try." Like really half-assed, like I really wasn't into it. I'm like, "This is not gonna work." But anything can work, and like I that just showed me like even if like you don't want to
Except
play
your
something, except your yeah right. But yeah, like, and I ended up really liking playing Viper. So yeah, I'm open to anything.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about you that that has always seemed to be the case for me, and in talking to you now, is that your number one interest is you're trying to win at all costs. Like
Yeah.
you seem like a true competitor in the real sense of being a competitor, and that has always been your goal, even back to years ago in Fortnite. And your if I can't remember exactly what you had posted in like your twit longer when you had said you were leaving Fortnite, but
hmm
it didn't surprise me at all to see you wanting to make that switch, because your desires in that game were for it to always be as truly competitive as possible in regards
hmm
to the sometimes absurd changes that the developers were making on the
dude,
day of tournaments.
I'm just
I was
laughing.
there. I remember those. Wasn't particularly fun. And you were always one of the most outspoken people about that, coming from the point of view of like you were the competitive guy. You wanted to see the game reach its competitive potential, and then
Yeah.
seeing you wanting to switch to Valorant to get the I just want to play a real straight up competitive game experience. that is kind of shaped my view of you. I view you as you want competition, you want to win, you want to compete.
Yep.
What do you think has been sort of the other, or what has been other people's point of view of you coming from Fortnite to Valorant? And has that negatively impacted you in any way?
I was wondering where you were going with this, because like you started, you're like, oh man, do I want to say this name? Do I want to say the game? Like, Fortnite.
Yeah.
No, because this was something you had mentioned this before. We were talking about things to ask Balla, and it's a great question.
Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna steal it. So what I was gonna but we were basically getting at one of the things about it too. Like, was it hard for you to earn cachet, like get some respect as an in-game leader, despite your background being Fortnite? Is that something that people negatively view?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think people do think that. I mean, a lot of the scene is like ex Counter-Strike guys, and for the most part, most of them, like, it's a new game, so like, who really cares where you come from at the end of the day? At least that's what I think at this point. But yeah, I mean, to bring back what you said about just winning, like, I said I wanted to play, or I said I was willing to play Viper because, that's what at the time the coaching staff thought that's what's going to make us win on split and stuff like that. And I had no problem kind of picking up the roles that other people didn't want to play. And that's honestly what it came down with IGL as well. Like, when I was joining that roster, it's not like, oh, they were getting me as an IGL. Like, I joined and like Andbox, and like I was just, playing Sova basically because I didn't have a Sova. And then just like early on, they're just like, we don't really have anyone that wants to IGL. Do you want to try it? And I did. So like, that's just kind of where it's been for me. I don't really think like, it's just been a learning experience for me, like I IGL'd in Fortnite, whatever the hell that meant. But like, it's completely, it's a completely different thing. Oh, I'm sorry, but Fortnite's just, yeah. It's a completely different ball game. So it was like a big learning experience for me. And I still am. Like, I don't really think I'm that great of an IGL or anything. Yeah, it's just been like trying to understand the game and, like play with what I'm being dealt, the players, and what makes the most sense, and creating strategies and countering and whatever it may mean. But like, coming from Fortnite though, like, yeah, obviously like a Fortnite IGL compared to a Counter-Strike IGL with experience seems like a joke, but I don't know. It's a completely different game, and some people got to get that through their head. And it's interesting. I think coming from Fortnite though, like, has its perks in some ways. Like, nobody has dealt with
Patch.
yeah, like being able to
you're not even
adapt.
sure if you're playing on
Yeah,
it, right?
being able to adapt changes like that quickly, I think I have an edge on. And then like also, you know, all of the, when you're in the middle of a retake or an XC, all the shit coming on your screen, frames dropping on. Plus, trust me, I've played at 60 FPS in grand finals of international lands. Like, it's like,
Dude, we're gonna get an ult, and it's gonna be like not gravity well where it spawns gravity. It's just gonna spawn gravity for everybody. And it's just gonna be right back at home.
Yep, that's happened. So like, I'm used to certain things like that, and I think that's where, like, having Fortnite top level experience has its perks and stuff like that. And obviously I think too, not coming from CS, I just offer like okay, well, not coming from CS, whatever that means. I didn't play CS professionally, but I had like 5K hours, like I played a lot of CS. So like, it's not like I don't understand principles of Counter-Strike, but I offer like a lot different of a perspective than like, a professional CS IGL would. So I think that also, once people started to play with me and understand, it kind of like was attractive to them as well.
I feel like in CS, this even started even back in 1.6. It was like at a certain point, like, it's not just like thinking about how to use your flashes, your smokes, and stuff like that. It just became a place where it's like we have to be fluid, and that's true, right? We have to be fluid with our defaults. We have to be able to make on the call adjustments and stuff, and that's what a lot of the best teams in CS were. So when you watch a Fnatic, when you watch an Astralis, even, I mean, Astralis is kind of a different edge case, I'd say, and a lot of the teams these days are different edge cases. But you always get this perception that the more flexible you are, the more fluid you are, and how adaptive you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's what leads you to being a good team. And I feel like a lot of the guys in NA are just like, yeah, we have to be that, right? Rather than like, let's think about how to do, full set executes and like full set retakes and stuff like that. I think that coming from a different game, you have that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting because compared to Counter Strike, like I think like honestly with certain compositions and like if you create and path out like everybody's utility,
Mhm.
like position in a certain way, like sometimes like at least when you first see it, there's like no counter. Like I think just the best example is like our A pop on split with Viper. Like it
Mhm.
took so long for people to even be able to like, I mean, I just remember calling like that first tournament, like that finals against Immortals. Like Immortals has seen it by then, like they'd probably seen our VODs and stuff. But I probably called like 5 rounds in a row because we just kept running them over. Like they just didn't understand how to like deal with it. And it's like it's at that point in Valorant where you can create some like retake or some execute so strong that during the match they're not going to understand how to counter it or like what the adjustment needs to be made besides like, oh, let's not let them get to this point. Like let's play interruptive and deny them, and that's the only way we ever got countered. Like, ripping an Omen flash down ramp right before we pop A or, breach ulting it. Like, that's like the only way to interrupt it. Like, we were just, it's to that point, and we'll get to, like even further to that point where, there's just going to be certain teams that have like super well thought out executes and retakes that you really just can't handle during the game. And you just have to really think of a way to like deal with it. And that's like kind of what I was saying with like Renegades. Like, it's extremely hard to deal with in the middle of the match, and that's what is different than like I guess Valorant to Counter Strike, because in Counter Strike you never could have nothing like that really, like where it's like, oh my god,
Yeah,
this
it's
is so
like
overwhelming, we can't deal with it.
we've seen all the executes
Yeah, yeah,
almost, right? We've seen
Yeah.
like slight variations sometimes with like other timings and stuff, but we've seen it all basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Does the prospect then of Riot adding a new agent every 2 months, does that excite you or worry you?
Um,
Either.
it excites me, but I'm curious to see like kind of the direction they go. Like I honestly, the game genre I've never really touched is like MOBAs and stuff. I'm not too knowledgeable about League. So I'm not sure like how kind of like all those agents, how people feel about that or those champions being added. But I like the idea of they keep adding agents, but you have to have the agent bans then. Like I think
mhm.
that it's gonna be really interesting once the bans come in, because like how are teams gonna play the game or approach the game if you cannot play a Sova or if you cannot play like a smoke agent? Like it, I feel like that might make the game like if you straight up can just ban smokes, like okay, the game's probably gonna be pretty bad or boring to watch. Like it's not gonna be like like you can't. I don't think you can really eliminate the cores, but maybe if you have like like agent category bans, like if you can ban a controller or you can ban one duelist or stuff like that, it could be interesting. Like I'm not sure how they're gonna do it, if they're gonna, if it's just one ban, two bans, or how soon that's gonna come. But they're adding agents every 2 months, so like I feel like that's gotta come soon.
They could
Yeah.
just go the Fortnite or Overwatch way and just vault agents.
Yeah. Get rid of Yoru. Nobody's playing this shit.
I mean, it seems it does seem inevitable that there are going to be agent pick bans, but I would
Mhm.
imagine by that point there are going to be so many options for each role
Yeah.
that you wouldn't even if you use like 5 bans on just smokes, you probably would still have one left over at that point.
You really think it's gonna be that long before we get them? I feel like agent bans are gonna come a lot sooner than that.
I
think
think
so?
my personal opinion is after champions, we're gonna get like after the end of the year, we're gonna get agent bans,
Yeah.
So how many are going to be in the game at that point? Like almost 20?
something like
Or
that.
maybe exactly 20.
What are we at? What is
Yeah, I
your
suppose.
agent
Yeah,
15?
maybe. I guess it just depends on how many bans you would get for each team.
Yeah.
But it would be an interesting dynamic. I mean, you're playing against TSM. All right, just ban Jett. Have
Yeah,
fun.
exactly.
Good luck.
Well, that's
Like,
the teams are gonna, or players like have to start realizing like there's so many players who are only comfortable playing their one or two agents, and it's like, well, what are you gonna do once that ban comes in? Like
I mean, we
there's gonna
already
be a
see
lot of
like
one tricks that are gonna be pretty lost.
we already see like that come into play sometimes when
Mhm.
when stuff gets nerfed or stuff gets buffed, right? Like this patch might make it 100% necessary in comp to play Viper, right?
yeah.
Oh
And
yeah,
and,
for
and
sure.
people are gonna be like, oh well, I've only played Omen this entire time. What do I
Yeah.
do? Like,
Well, you already
um,
know there's gonna be like if Viper's insane, there's gonna be certain teams that are like, no, we're not gonna play this. Like,
yeah.
like they don't
I'm already
understand
seeing
like
that
how
with
to.
Astra. Like, there's some teams
Yeah,
that are just like not running it at all.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean, it depends, but like certain teams and certain players are just so against playing to like clearly what works Like,
Mhm.
the other thing with Fortnite player, like, I run and shoot all the time. Why? Because it's the fucking meta. Like, obviously, I just destroy people I'm running and shooting. Like, what do you mean? Like, oh, this guy doesn't know how to aim. Doesn't know how to, like, why wouldn't you do it? Like, I legit don't even run a Vandal anymore. I'm just 100% Vandal because it's so clearly better in, like, almost any scenario. And, like, close range, like, I'm not standing still. I'm moving. Like, there's just no way.
Yeah.
Oh,
That
I
is
would hate to play you. No, no, no,
just
no.
ruining my DM lobbies. That exact
Oh, yeah.
type of player, just destroying my fun in DM. That is the big difference. So I think with like the lower third right now says Fortnite versus Valorant. I mean, I think in regards to talking about that, I mean, you can include a million different games next to Fortnite, all but CS. I think that there is something to having experience in different games, and especially games like, I mean, well, Fortnite has received more updates more frequently than any game ever. But other games where things are more frequently updated, like Overwatch does get new agents, though hasn't been particularly often the past couple of years. But Overwatch gets new agents. They get new patches all the time. Things are constantly changing. The meta is changing. You have to be comfortable playing multiple heroes, aiming in different ways as well. Like, one of the things that drives me fucking crazy, because I come from like TF2 and Quake game backgrounds, seeing Raze players just fumble their satchels around, and they don't lower their crosshair when they fire the rocket. They're trying to fucking headshot someone with the rocket. It drives me crazy, man. But there's
That's
a clear difference between I think the approach in the game, and even often in the mechanics of just people from different games. I think that I'm not going to say it's necessarily a requisite to have players on your team who have different backgrounds and have played different games at this stage, but I feel like it is entirely beneficial. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to think now in NA. Like, are there
I
any?
think all the teams are mixed at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I couldn't imagine at this point trying to have a team of just strictly CS guys or just strictly tac shooter guys. Like, who's the closest to that before? Maybe
100
like
Thieves?
T1?
100 Thieves.
Yeah, or 100 Thieves. Actually, I guess 100 Thieves is all.
Also, yes.
Minus
Yeah.
Asuna.
So that is, yeah, that's really the only example. But do you feel that, I guess what I was saying earlier, I think it's beneficial to have a mix of players. I think you need players with different backgrounds who are going to think about things in a different way and try to push the game forward in terms of the agents you're running, the style you're playing. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think that, soon we're gonna see. I mean, in a year from now, it's just gonna be Valorant players. Nobody's gonna be really considered like a Counter-Strike player anymore and stuff like that. I think that Counter-Strike players, everybody assumed, and I mean rightfully so. In the beginning, Counter-Strike players, I think, definitely had a pretty distinct advantage. But that's all it was, like a starting advantage. I think that's starting to falter now. Like, obviously, like a lot of Counter-Strike players are still going to be better aimers than players that come from different games, but I mean, it's clear that it's a completely different game, and there's certain teams that are like so focused on playing the Counter Strike way that that's what like is their downfall. They're not willing to adapt to why Valorant's different, or the change like a hardcore principle in Counter Strike that you would never break. You like have to break in Valorant. Like, one of the main things is like no Counter-Strike team ever would want to play like a 5v5 retake, but like it's obviously viable in Valorant. Like, you can do it, if you approach it correctly, have the right agents, have the abilities ready to do it, like you can do it. Like, you can do it in Counter-Strike too, but it's just, it was a lot scarier and stuff like that. And a lot of teams just aren't willing to play retake and maybe commit too much and stuff like that. And yeah.
Yeah, we saw it 5 times in a row. You just remind me of that V1 FaZe game where FaZe just went C like 5 or 6 rounds in a row on Haven, and because V1 were just all stood outside of it, just a 5-on-5 retake every single round.
Yeah, I was tabbing in and out of that match. Like, I was watching the Andbox Noble in that match, and I swear to God, every time I tuned in to V1 FaZe or on C site, I didn't see anywhere else in that match, bro.
Every round.
Is this the replay? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
Yeah, it was one of those situations where I think where it's like the two teams are scrim partners, so they've developed their own meta within that game. Because you saw V1 like pushing up aggressively on A every single round. Didn't matter at all because FaZe just hit C straight up every single round. But I suppose that is kind of a thing, right? Like developing your own meta between two teams because you just play them all the time. Have you experienced that?
I mean,
just making shit up right now.
I don't know if it's necessarily a meta, but at least you understand at least individual player tendencies like on a default. Like if you scrim them a lot and you see how they default, like like, oh, this guy, he'll go B main, but he'll do like these like 3 different things. So like people try and like just hard counter that in a match, but then like maybe they're ready for that. They're not doing that, or he's aware that that he does that, or it's like there's a bit of a meta game there, but I don't think it's as extreme as you may think, though.
Gotcha.
Well, one more question on this Fortnite versus Valorant thing. Did what when you woke up and you saw they're like, oh, we're gonna play on patch 2.06 with Viper and your buffs. Were you like, God damn it, I can't escape, bro?
Yeah, it was something like that. I was like, dude, we're doing this again, but I was at least like, I mean, at least I'm used to it. I mean, Riot's been good about it, and I think this happened like another time too, but they like kind of shut it down pretty quickly, or at least they like reverted and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like with less than 12 hours, I think we already had managers tweeting like, no, we're playing on 2.05. So
it's really weird though. They would even like why is that being tweeted out? Like if the tournament's tomorrow, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was just like one news outlet was like, I think it was Liquipedia, was like looking for what the patch was going to be played on, and that's the info that they got. And then the teams were like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, listen, to Riot's credit though, I think I'm glad that they have withheld the desires from their marketing team. No, we just put in a new agent. We have to put it in the tournament. The Sky, put her in the first strike finals. I'm glad that they have not listened to that suit in the marketing room who has tried, because surely someone has suggested it, but they haven't gone for it.
Masters, like we could have had Astra and Masters.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So genuinely glad that they've yet to do that, and I mean. At this point, they've established that is just going to be the way things go. When there's a new agent added, you're waiting until the next tournament for that agent to be in. So if they ever try and go the other direction, people are going to be furious. I'm glad that has been established already.
Yeah, it's a good way to approach it. But I'm not too sure about like patches like this. Like obviously this patch is kind of major because there was like 2 agent changes, but I'm not sure if they've established like, because I think like on smaller patches we have played like on it the next day or like the next couple days or whatever, like after a patch, if it's like a more minor change. Like say those patches or those changes didn't come in for Viper and Yoru, like would have been nice to play HOTF on this tournament, because I still have that off. Like everybody's just practicing without it, because even this next close is going to be on old patch, so everyone's still playing. Yeah.
Oh, let's go. Okay, that's different then. I thought that this next close was going to have Viper Yoru. I thought literally that was going to be the change.
Yeah.
Cool. Good.
As far as I know, I'm pretty sure it's still old patch.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, I suppose the only thing we really have left is if we're going to take a look at the bracket. Get a little preview for the what do they call this? The Challengers main event? Is that what it's called?
Main event, I think it's called.
Main event 1. Sure. Kurt, pull up main event 1.
So XSET is the first draw.
Yeah.
Already I like it because you're gonna go up against Swifo.
Yeah.
What do you make of this straight up matchup right here?
I think it's good for us. I think our map pools are kind of intertwined well, and we scrim them a bit, and I think we have a good chance of beating them.
Yeah.
They're a really interesting team though, because of how I think they also recently made some changes to their composition and stuff. And they've been swapping calling a lot, so it's like kind of playing. It's not the same team, you saw like last tournament and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I was under the impression now that they have CJ is the IGL now.
Yeah,
I think they've swapped it to him. That is a tough first round opponent though. It should be a good game.
Yeah,
XSET just endlessly underrated. They're just never going to get credit for being good ever. It's never going to happen. But that is a tough first round opponent, and then. Yeah, presumably if you go on from there, probably playing against Envy, unless version 1. I mean, they look good against FaZe, so doable. But yeah, I mean, should be a pretty good tournament. Be a pretty good tournament regardless. So it was a good first round match, at least from the spectator. As a spectator, I guess no matter who wins, I expect that to be pretty close. So that should be pretty good. All right, Ball. Do you have anything else Anything else on the docket? Any burning questions? Want to reminisce about I don't know, rolling around
The
in a
good old
baller and
days.
grappling a little bit, or do we want to end this?
The Fortnite stories.
I think we
horror
can. I think
stories.
we can end it there. We'll have other podcasts where maybe that'll be the way to go. But
All right.
for now,
All right.
I'm glad we stuck with mostly Valorant today because I didn't want to go in that direction.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Poach. Much
Yeah,
appreciated.
thank you for having me.
Was very fun. Balla as well. Thank you. And what do we got coming up, Kurt? Well, on Wednesday, the regular Plat Chat show. You know who's going to be on there? Myself, Balla, Avast, the Egg. The four of us. We're going to be talking about recapping challengers. Probably talking more about BBG and how they beat Sentinels. And other than that, I don't know. Just you got to leave a comment. You have to leave a comment, and I can't think of what the comment would be. Kurt, do you have anything for the people to leave so we can get engagement and I can make money off this video?
Dude, the first thing that popped in my head was what your favorite Fortnite dance was. Not a good question. So you kind of put me on the spot.
Okay, that's fine.
Comment your favorite Fortnite emote. There you go.
There it is. Mine's the Orange Justice. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on Wednesday.